Okay, we are recording now. Hello, everyone, and thank you for joining Global Flood Crosscutting monthly meeting. We appreciate your participations and your engagement with our community on this important initiative. So every month we have this exciting kind of event in order to shape the Crosscut project over time. And again, we appreciate your participations. A couple of things before we start with our keynote speaker. Our proposal, as many of you um, you are aware of it, is our proposal got approved by GEWEX hydrometeorology panel recently, and then it is a crosscut within a GEWEX program. So your input matters to us a lot. So we do appreciate if you could participate in our literature review. If you have done any flood related research, any part of the world that you guys are exploring, we would appreciate your feedback, and we do appreciate to have your publications and your result integrated into the report. Here is the Google Doc that you can add your publication. If you could also add a brief kind of summary of what you done, what kind of funding you got to conduct this research. We do appreciate to have those information from you. And then make sure that if you have anyone in your group, in your network, in your department, university, feel free to share it with anyone who you think might be interested or might have some kind of flood-related publication that could help with our final report. We appreciate you guys' contribution. All right, and then another things that we wanted to mention was about WMO conference that we got the information from GEWEX leadership about the about a workshop, I guess, is in the abstract is due on December 1st. And it is WMO special session at 10 International Conference on flood management. So if you guys are interested, I send this information in the chat. You can contact the conference organizers and elaborate their website. If you are interested to submit your abstract, so feel free to, I think it doesn't allow me to send a big kind of text, but I'm going to send it in 2-3 kind of chat. Is better with me. Okay, so let me first send this one. So feel free to actually submit your abstract and your work to WMO conference. And again, the deadline for abstract submission is on December 1st. Let me see if I can send all of it. Okay, done. Thank you for your patience. So, and now we are delighted to welcome Professor Arias from the University de Antioquia. If I'm correct, you can correct me. Paola, Colombia. She's also the co-chair of GEWEX hydrometeorology panel, and she's going to provide awesome kind of keynote about GEWEX GHP activity, and particularly how our flood initiative could help the community around the world. Let's give a warm welcome to Professor Arias. Paola, thank you. And the stage is yours.
Thanks a lot, Vivian, for inviting me to this monthly meeting on the Global Flood Crosscutting project. I think it's very good that you are having these meetings, starting, like continuing with the activity and the momentum that you have been having during the recent months and years. So my idea today is to tell you a little bit about what is this GEWEX hydroclimatology panel, where Global Flood Crosscut is part. So the idea is that you know which other activities are within the panel, like what are other types of crosscut projects that could be like an example, for instance, for the different activities that you could develop during your different agenda that you could be setting at this point. So as Vivian mentioned, my name is Paola Arias. I am a professor at Universidad de Antioquia in Medellin, Colombia. And my idea is to show you a little bit on this GEWEX hydroclimatology panel, GHP, which I am one of the co-chair. The other co-chair is Alina Semi from Universidad of Concordia in Canada, but he will be stepping down this year. So we will have Ali Rowan from Ireland, from University of Maynooth in Ireland, and he will be my co-chair during the next few years. So first, I think it is important to know a little bit about this institutionality within WCRP, because sometimes it's super confusing, at least it was for me. All these acronyms, and also like, what is WCRP? Like, what is GEWEX? Where is that part of? So I think it is good to have this little overview. So as you may know, WCRP is the World Climate Research Program. This is a research program that is within the WMO, the World Meteorological Organization, UNESCO, and also the International Science Council. So you may know also the other part, that is the World Weather Research Program, WWRP. is a similar institution dedicated more to meteorology, to weather, and this one is dedicated more to climate. So within the WCRP, there are two types of main blocks, let's say two blocks. One is what is called the core projects, and then they have other type of activities that are called the lighthouse activities. So we have these two types of activities and projects within the WCRP. So if we go to the WCRP structure and we see the core projects, these are the core projects, these are the acronyms and the different logos. You can see that there are projects dedicated to particular aspects of climate. So for instance, there is a part that is a project that is dedicated more to the atmospheric processes and the role in climate. So this is something, for instance, that is very focused on chemistry, for instance, atmospheric chemistry. Then we have CLIC. CLIC is more dedicated to cryosphere. So the acronym is climate and cryosphere. So this is more for cryospheric processes. Then we have CLIBAR. CLIBAR is more focused on oceans, but also on variability. So this one is more focused on climate variability and not necessarily climate change, for instance. Then we have ESMO. ESMO is the Air System Modeling and Observation. So this is the core project that embraces observational aspects, but also modeling aspects. Then we have GEWEX. This is the core projects in which we are located. GEWEX is the global exchanges of water and energy. And then we have RIFS. RIFS is a most recent core project. This is the Regional Information for Society. And this one is more focused on how to have climate information that is useful for society. GEWEX is, for instance, more focused on the exchanges in global energy and water cycles. So you can see that each of these core projects, of course, there are synergies, there are possible overlaps and common places, but each core project has a very particular and very distinctive main goal that is attending. So these are the different core projects within WCRP. And again, the Global Flood Crosscut project is within the GEWEX core project, as we are going to see next. And these are the core projects that are guiding the different objectives that the WCRP have. But it is also based on other type of activities that is called the lighthouse activities. These lighthouse activities has different activities. Some of them, maybe you know them, is digital alerts, for instance, explaining and predicting air system change. This one is very recent, is the Global Precipitation Experiment, GPEX, My Climate Risk, research on climate intervention, and safe landing climates. So these are more specific aspects that are necessary, like to encompass the whole goals and objectives of the WCRP community and program. So as I mentioned, within the WCRP core projects, there is GEWEX. And within GEWEX, we have 4 different panels. That those panels are addressed to focus on different aspects of the global energy and water exchanges. That is the main goal within GEWEX. And in particular, we have one panel that is called the Global Atmospheric System Studies, GAS. So this is a panel that is very focused on the atmosphere processes that are important for the exchanges in water and energy. For instance, here you have a lot of aspects associated with convection, for instance, processes associated with clouds. Modeling, of course, is part of this particular panel. So this is a panel focused on the atmosphere. Then we have a similar panel, but more focused on the land-atmosphere interactions. So this one is the Global Land Atmosphere System Studies, GLASS. This one then is not focused on the atmosphere, but more on the surface atmosphere interactions, also from the observational part, but also from the modeling part. So this is a second panel focused on processes, physical processes, again related to the global water and energy cycles. And then we have one panel that is focused on data and analysis. This is the GEWEX Data and Analysis Panel, GDAP. And this one is more focused on which type of data we have for the global energy and water exchanges. And then there is the panel where flood in particular is located. This is the GEWEX Hydroclimatology panel. And this is a panel that is devoted to the more regional features of hydroclimate. Again, focus on water and energy exchanges, but more at the regional level. So the Global Flood Crosscut project, in which you are all of you involved, is part of this panel, and that is where I am going to focus now, explaining a little bit what is the idea behind GHP, which type of activities GHP has, and also like what could be the role of the Flood Crosscut project on the GHP structure and in general the GEWEX structure. So the GHP is a panel within GEWEX that has as a objective to understand and predict continental to local scale hydroclimate for hydrological applications. So you can see here that even if GEWEX and in general WCRP is at a very global level, then the GHP tries to convey objectives at the regional level. So we do this addressing the water cycle at these scales. And this will allow us to better understand the different components of the system from its physical, but also to the economic and social aspects. So that is something that is very unique in GHP. GHP is not only focused on the physical processes at the regional scale, but it's also very focused on the socioeconomic processes, dynamics that also are involved and affect the energy and water cycles. So within the GHP, we have 4 types of activities. I will talk a little bit about all of these, giving you examples of activities that we have ongoing right now on this. So we have like the largest, let's say the largest projects are the regional hydroclimate projects. Then we have the global data centers. We have the networks, and we also have the crosscut projects, in which flood is one of these crosscut projects. So let's see this structure of the different type of activities and what are the main ideas. So first we will start with the regional hydroclimate projects. Here with the different polygons, you could see the regions where we have regional projects. So here, for instance, we have one of our oldest projects is Baltic Air. It has more than 2 decades going on, this project that is more focused on the Baltic region. So it comprises researchers and institutions from different countries within the Baltic region. Then we have another very good example of a long-lived activity that is the Global Water Futures. This one is more a national initiative. This is focused on Canada. So for instance, this one is focused on the hydroclimate in Canada, but it also involves a lot of activities with like from the social component, for instance, with indigenous peoples, local people in the region. So it is a very nice example of transdisciplinary approach, and also like including different sources of knowledge. Then we have more recent projects or regional projects that are going on. For instance, we have Andex. This one is a transnational project because it includes initially 7 nations, 7 countries in South America that share the Andes Cordillera. Then we have also AsiaPEX. For instance, AsiaPEX is more focused on precipitation processes, not the whole hydroclimate component, but more the precipitation. Is Asia Precipitation Experiment, that is the acronym, and is more focused on, for instance, monsoon type of features. We have also the third pole environment project. This is more focused on the Tibet and on the third pole region. So it includes not only processes associated with precipitation, but also, for instance, cryosphere and other type of processes. And then we have the one of the regional projects is focused on the United States. This one is like going on for a while, but they are starting to come together as a community. And this one is a project that wants to follow an approach that is similar to Global Water Futures in terms of including different knowledge systems, but also being very relevant for society. And then we have one initiative activity that is Central Asia, to have a regional hydroclimate project in this region, which has other type of climate and hydrology, but also other type of societal dynamics. So each of these programs respond to the nature of each community, of different regions, different cultures, different research cultures. So of course, these projects are very big because they have different objectives to understand hydroclimate in these different regions across the world. So let's say that these are the largest structure within the GHP in terms of the different activities. The second type of activities is more data centers. These data centers include, we currently have 2. This is the Global Precipitation Climatology Center, GPCC. Probably you have used data recollected and processed and curated by this center, and also the Global Runoff Data Center, GRDC. Both of them are hosted in Germany, in different institutions in Germany. And they do a very important job, that is collecting information from different hydrological and meteorological services across the world to have like in situ data that is processed and that is homogenized. And they do also some analysis with this, but they provide information that could be very useful for the GEWEX and in general the scientific community. For instance, flood. Which floods are related, of course, with precipitation, and also runoff is a way to measure or to be monitoring floods. Then these 2 data centers are very relevant. And the idea of these data centers is not only provide information, but also that the different activities within the GHP could help also the data centers, for instance, to improve like the data that they have, but also, for instance, some of these activities are having their own measurements, their own monitoring networks, etc. So this is a way that this information could be also handled by these type of data centers. Then we have the networks. The networks have a very different purpose. These networks are more focused on creating like a community across particular regions or across particular topics. It's the case of PANEX. PANEX is a center here in the Pannonian Basin in Central Europe. They are not focused necessarily on a particular process or physical process. They are more focused on building community, working on different aspects. For instance, they have been working a lot on more applications of meteorology in agriculture, for instance, and depending on the community interest, they are building community. They are having, for instance, summer schools and hosting different activities that bring together the scientists in the region. But there is another one that is very recent, is the Global Groundwater Network. They actually wanted to be at the beginning a crosscut, a flood, but they decided that at this point they want to be a network. This is a global network, it's not a regional network. And the idea is to bring together people working on groundwater, from measurements, from modeling, like the hydrogeologist community. So this is it's a community that is not necessarily working together. So the idea is to start having together this community, finding like guiding research questions that the community could be doing at the global level, but also at the regional level. So this is more building the community, and maybe at some point they could be other type of activity. But at the beginning, it was necessary to bring together the community. And then we have the crosscut projects. Those crosscut projects are more focused in particular physical processes, not necessarily in a particular region, but understanding processes that are important for the global exchanges in water and energy. Is the case of PIMEX. I will talk more specifically about this in the next slides. We have 5 crosscut projects at this moment. All of them are ongoing projects. We have PIMEX, in ARC. We have this one that is focused on evapotranspiration. We have REVEX, and we have Global Flood, which is the crosscut that you are leading. And the idea is to let you know more about the different activities that are similar to Global Flood. So again, these are the different regional hydroclimate projects. Here you could see like how long have been they going on, and what is the science plan being approved for. For instance, you can see that most of these recent programs, they are intended to be until 2030, a little bit after 2030. So these are more midterm, let's say 5 to 10 years term projects that want to improve our knowledge of the regional hydroclimate in the different regions. Each one of these projects have different approaches. For instance, Baltic Earth is you have a lot of countries, researchers and research institutes in different countries. Each of these countries has an institution, has their own funding, and they have come together to start answering questions regarding the Baltic climate, Baltic hydrology. Of course, ocean processes are very important in this region, sea level, so they work on these type of projects. Coming together with different grants and different funding that the community has been having. But for instance, Global Water Futures is very different because it's only one country, and they earn a very huge grant, a multi-millionaire grant that they have been using for a while to answer questions and to work as a community in Canada. So these are very different approaches in terms of how they have been dealing with the project, and also the research questions, how they approach to the research questions, the priorities, the scientific priorities, etc., are very different because it's the community the one driving the activity. I am part of Andes because I am here in Colombia. I've been in Andes since the very beginning. We have been in 2027, we will be 10 years of thinking on Andes. So we are 8 years now. And this one is very different also because the community, the first thing is starting having together the community in 7 countries. This is a very large, it's like more than 7,000 kilometers long. So it is super extensive. We have people very different, even if we speak Spanish. Maybe we are more culturally similar, but there are a lot of differences. How the hydromet services work is very different across the region, etc. So we are finding like what are our research questions, what will be our priorities, how are we going to get funding, because for us funding is something that is huge. We don't have a lot of funding agencies with huge grants that we could start developing Andes. So we are on that duty, for instance. But then you have, for instance, TPE that is led mostly by Chinese scientists, but you have some scientists from other countries. For instance, they have a lot of measurements. They have a lot of equipment and technological equipment to do measurements regarding the hydroclimate in the third pole region because they had previous projects that they have already an observatory system, and they are improving this observatory system. So it's a very different story, whereas here we don't have that. They have here that possibility, and they are building on that. For instance, AsiaPEX is very focused also, not only monitoring, but also modeling, for instance. So they are building modeling capacities in terms of, as I mentioned before, more the Asian monsoon precipitation and Asian monsoon related projects. So it's a very different story across the different projects. And here what I want to say is that GEWEX is very respectful of what the community wants to do. GEWEX is more a facilitator, a dynamizer of the synergy between the communities, between the different groups, but the agenda is totally driven by the scientists that are leading the activity and that are part of the activity. Of course, GEWEX each year is reviewing like how the progress of the activity, like during the last year, how the activity has been doing, not only in terms of seeing, oh yes, you have done very well or you haven't done not that very well, is more also to help the community, like how can you convey better the activity or the objectives that you have in mind. So that is the role of GEWEX, is to help the community to build together, in this case, more the regional community. And this knowledge that is learned at the regional level is very useful to understand also the global issues. So that's why it's not only seeing everything as a global thing, but also going into the specific details of the regions. So that's the main objectives here within the regional hydroclimate projects that are focused on many different physical processes. It's not only one physical process, and it's not only physical, it's also socioeconomical processes that are involved in the energy and water exchanges. The global data centers, again, these two, one focus on precipitation, one focus on runoff. So the idea is to collect and distribute hydrologically relevant data. As I mentioned, they collect information from the different hydromet services, but the information, the data that is also collected during different projects and also the different activities within the GHP could be very useful to improve this data that will be available for the whole community, not only for the GEWEX community. The networks I already mentioned, we have the approach of a regional network, but also of a global network. In this case, they are focused on a particular physical aspect of the hydrological cycle. And you can see here that we have the groundwater aspects covered with this activity. This was one of the aspects of the water cycle that GEWEX didn't have until this activity before, and that we really considered that it was very important to have an activity focused on the groundwater phase of the water cycle. And that's how the crosscut projects come into play, because you will see that the different crosscut projects, for instance, as the Global Flood Crosscut, is focusing on a particular aspect of the water cycle. So for instance, in general, these crosscuts are integral activities within the GHP. They are focused on specific physical processes, but the idea is that these crosscut activities also help to build collaborations between the regional projects, other GEWEX panels, and even other WCRP activities. So the idea is to focus on a particular physical process, but also that this helps us as a dynamizer of activities, or at least collaboration, or at least sharing the different learnings regarding that specific physical process that is being embraced by the crosscut activity that we were talking about. So let's start with TMEX. TMEX is an activity, a crosscut activity that has been going on for a while now. For instance, the interest of TMEX is to improve our current understanding of exchanges processes in the atmosphere over mountains, and how these processes are parameterized in climate models. So you could see that it's a very specific objective. They are focused on mountain regions, and they are focused on the atmospheric processes in mountain regions. This is an activity that is led from the Innsbruck University in Austria. So the team is very focused on the Alps. That is how the activity has been going on. But of course, the learnings from this activity could be very useful for other mountain regions, let's say the Andes, or let's say, for instance, in the United States, the regions where are mountains, or TPE, which is a region where we have, of course, the presence of orography and mountains. So you could see here that they have very specific targets. They are targeting numerical models and observations. Actually, they have finished what is called the TMEX observational campaign, a huge campaign of observations in the context of the atmospheric processes, boundary layer processes, for instance, etc., over mountains, particularly over the Alps. Also, one target for them is to improve weather forecasts and the characterization of the global water and energy cycles, improving like this understanding and knowledge regarding these cycles and exchanges over mountain regions. So you could see here an example of an activity that is focused on this particular aspect. INARC is another crosscut activity that is also focused on mountain regions, but this activity is not focused on the atmospheric processes and the atmospheric modeling of these processes and the observations of the boundary layer processes, turbulence processes, etc. But they are most focused on the hydrology in basins that are located in mountain regions. So these they are already in the second phase of this crosscut activity, and they seek to better understand alpine cold regions hydrological processes, improve their prediction, and find also consistent measurement strategies. So this is an activity that is not in one single mountain region, but is in different mountain regions across the world. You could see here that they have about 30 basins that have been monitored during the recent years. They have this current integrated high mountain observing and predicting system. So you could see different mountain regions, alpine regions in the world, in almost all continents except Africa. Here we could see something that is we really need to attend. Also Africa, to bring scientists from Africa that are learning in Africa, that know about the processes in Africa. For instance, floods will be a very good opportunity to also to engage with African scientific community, which has very good scientists working on these topics, particularly in your case on floods. But in this case, this is an example of a community that brings people, researchers from different countries that are interested in particular aspects, in this case, the hydrological processes in high mountain regions, that they have their own measurements, their own sites for monitoring, that they have their own national projects, but they come together to put pieces and to start having an agenda on how to answer, like this one, for instance, find consistent measurement strategies, how to measure, for instance, particular aspects of the hydrological processes. That is something that you could share, right, in this type of activities. So here I want to say atmospheric processes in mountain regions, then hydrological processes in mountain regions. They are focusing on different aspects that are related with energy and water exchanges. We have groundwater, which is not a crosscut, but a network, but is attending a particular process or physical aspect that is groundwater. And then we have another activity that is more focused on evapotranspiration. So this one is called determining DET. This is an activity that had a momentum during a few years. It was led by a team of researchers, and at that moment they were very focused on this particular aspect. They were very like focused on how to reconcile observing evapotranspiration, modeling evapotranspiration, theory of evapotranspiration. So at that moment, the group that was leading this and the community that was brought together in this activity were thinking more on this type of questions. Also, the partitioning, how the evapotranspiration is split in the different components, right? So that is something that was initially the idea within this crosscut activity. But it's normal, like happens that, of course, we are all people, scientists, we have our own work, we have to be in our universities, institutions. So we need a momentum of people leading, and in particular, this activity became or came into a hiatus. Like for a while, there was not much activity within the community, a change of leadership in particular also. And then we have now new leaders that want to reshape the activity. So now they are thinking on other things like, for instance, if we could have like an intercomparison project on evapotranspiration or other type of guidance, not necessarily the same approach that was taught at the beginning. And this is an activity that is reshaping now, and that we expect that during the next few years, we will have more an active activity with different results. So this is an example of things that, of course, happen in science, and bringing a community together and keep the momentum in a community is not easy. It's something that it also faces a lot of challenges. So this is one case, for instance, and this again is focused on a particular process of the water cycle, which is the evapotranspiration. There is another activity. This one is very recent. It's also like very like at the same time that the Global Flood Crosscut project. This is called the River Experiment project, or initiative is GEWEX. This one, for instance, is led by a scientist. He's French, but he's based in the US, in the JPL. Cedric David, probably you know, many of you know Cedric David. In JPL, he has been leading this activity, and in particular, their idea is to advance our understanding of Earth's most renewable and accessible freshwater resource, which are the rivers. So here they are focused not on the floods like you are, but more on the surface waters in the rivers. And the broad objective of this activity is modeling across space and time scales for the benefit of science and society. So they are thinking different approaches, going from the global, continental to the watershed scale, using different type of measurements, sources, in situ information, drones, satellites, and also like using different elements to have river modeling. So they are not necessarily focused on floods as you are. They are more focused on the hydrology in the rivers. But of course, a discussion and also the synergy between particularly flood and GEWEX is important, because then you will know, okay, GEWEX is doing this, we could do this, not to overlap, not to duplicate efforts that we know that is very difficult to start having a community together, to have time to have these monthly meetings, for instance, etc. So this is something important. So in particular, Vidia, who has been leading this initiative, Josh, that has been also very involved with this. They know Cedric David, for instance. Many of you may know Cedric. So these conversations between the two activities will be very beneficial, because it's also learning in the process, right? Because they are learning, they are doing things one way. Maybe it could be helpful for you to know what they are doing, or for them to understand what you are doing, right? Because you are trying to convey your activity, and also you have a lot of synergies that could be happening. And then there is the Global Flood Crosscut project. Of course, I won't talk about this because this is your own project, and you have been dealing and working on this and discussing on this every month for a while now. So the question is, okay, these are the 3 objectives that you have. So it is part of the discussion that you may have, like whether it will be good to narrow the objectives, to focus on one particular aspect, because of course one can be starting thinking, okay, I want to do all of this, but at the end you say it's very difficult. Let's start with something specific, and let's start growing on that direction, and then maybe seeing other possibilities. So I just wanted to give you here different examples of the activities that have been going on. At this moment, we have 16 activities that are going on within the GHP. During the last 3 years, this panel has been growing a lot, which means that we have to also take care of the activities. The panel members, Vidia and Josh, are also GHP members, so they are within the panel and they are aware of the other activities, which is very good, because then you will have first-hand information to see how to probably solve issues, or how to go in one particular direction with this crosscut activity. So that was my idea, to give you this overview of the GHP, and I hope this is helpful on the discussions on the what are the objectives or the different activities that you want to push during the next months or next years in the flood crosscut project. Thank you.
Thank you, Paola. Great, wonderful presentation. A lot of information. Okay, guys, thank you. Any question for Paola? I know she has to hoop off soon. Any question you guys may have for her? Yes, Biner. Yes, you can unmute yourself. Yes.
Thank you very much, Paola, for the great presentation. It's awesome to see that quite a lot of work is being done around the world in the area of flood modeling and flood studies. So I just had a question. From the presentations you made, it appears that most of the projects that are addressing these flood-related problems around the world are concentrated in the northern part of the world, the global north, and partly in the Southern America. But I was curious to see how this could also scale up to African continent. Just to start addressing some of the problems that also the continent is facing. And the next question is, you mentioned on the global data center, and of course you said that these are able to kind of work on different projects, but also the data that they're using I don't know, how are they able to access this data? Is it that they have their own sensors in the countries that they're working, or they're working with the National Met Services to acquire data that help them work? Thank you.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thanks for the questions. So the second question, they collect the data that is provided by the national services. So they don't do measurements. What they do is like data centers that collect and process the data and put the data available for the general public. So they don't produce their own data. They don't have measurements in the countries. They are involved with the different hydromet services across the world. And you may know, as in, for instance, in South America, in Africa, in general, in the global South, sometimes it's super difficult to get the information, to even get the contact with the hydromet services, etc. So it's a challenge. And maybe that is a way how the different activities could help these services, because maybe when we are here, we say, yes, I know someone, maybe we could try to be in touch with that person and then helping probably the connections, because for them, they depend on the services, national services. So if a national service don't provide information, etc., they don't get access to the information. So that is their main goal. And regarding Africa, that is one specific issue, worry that we have within GEWEX, because we don't have any activity actually focused right now on in any of the panels actually in Africa, but particularly in the GHP, which is the regional program. We have tried, but again, the idea of GEWEX and the GHP is not to force anyone. Is that the community come together, right? We know that there is a monsoon panel on the African monsoons that works quite well, but another thing is that we would like to have people in Africa, not European scientists that are working on Africa, or even African scientists that are outside Africa, in Europe, for instance. Of course, they could be part, but we really would like that this is driven by the African community in Africa. And that has been a challenge. And maybe you are here, you could see, for instance, I see that, for instance, if you are involved in floods and you see that there is more people, there are more scientists that could be interested in coming together, or maybe thinking, okay, why don't we start a network? For instance, that could be a possibility, a network in Africa, because I know I am from South America. Andex is a regional program, but at the beginning we need to build the network, because there are a lot of scientists, but we were not a network at all. Each one was in each country. We didn't talk much. Now we are doing that, and that is the way to start. So for instance, Bernard, it could be an opportunity, for instance, if you consider that bringing and leading a network will be something good to start, not necessarily starting thinking on a program that of course needs more to be more mature, let's say, in terms of the community working together, right? So of course there are a lot of African scientists doing many important things. The important issue here is that the African scientists in Africa want to do this, that they want to be involved, they want to be part of this. And this is why it's not necessarily easy, because we know that you are involved, many of African scientists are involved in many activities. So sometimes there is no time to have more activities. Of course, the funding is always an issue. But I can tell you from my perspective in Andex, we don't have funding yet. It has been 8 years now. We have been GEWEX has helped us, and that's the way GEWEX could help, is providing some funding for meetings, things that are not big. You don't have a huge project, but you can meet with other colleagues in Africa and start doing this. That's something very important that GEWEX did in South America, in the Andex. And now we are just doing our thing. You know, we are just flying, thinking new things. How can we do it? It's sometimes the momentum, because the ideas are there, the people are there. The thing is how we can start bringing together. So this is an invitation. If you consider that maybe, and maybe we could talk about this later with the other GHP co-chair, or Peter Van Ovelen, that is the GEWEX project manager, director. maybe we could start thinking like what ideas you have, how GEWEX could contribute with this. I start thinking a network could be a good way, because maybe it's a way to start bringing people together, and it's a possibility. But if you have more, of course, scientific ideas, no, this is an important question that we could be addressing in Africa. We have people that is interested in this, etc. That will be, because of course, Africa is a missing region that we really need to have here if we want to understand the regional processes.
Great.
Thank you very much. I think that's a quite good response. Actually, we just recently started the kind of a network on a small scale to see how we could advance some of these programs in the region. And my institute, alongside other institutions and humanitarian organizations, came up with the roadmap for and special action for Kenya, addressing various hazards. And I belong, it has 7 pillars. And I belong to the pillar of research, learning and innovation, which is identifying multi-hazards around the country and also within the region. So in collaboration with other institutions, we are identifying what are the research themes, research areas that we could start with. We are about to finish just a manuscript, which I'm really interested to see if I could submit the abstract in the, the WMO meeting that you said, addressing some of the recent floods that have been happening in the country. But as you say, yeah, it would be nice to really advance this and see that Africa is well represented to address African problems from these kind of global initiatives. Thank you very much. Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you, Biner, and thank you, Paola. Great discussion. We have time for a quick question if you guys have. If not, we can wrap up. So I sent some information about how our community could get involved in GEWEX activities. The first one is GEWEX e-news link. You guys can go through that link and register and receive monthly email about GEWEX activity, news, job opening, and conferences, all kind of cool activities that are going around the world. You can receive the news about it. And the second one, I sent the link for our Global Flood Crosscut portal. There you can look at the previous keynote speaker, recorded session, and upcoming keynote speakers if you are interested. And our next keynote speaker for the month of December is Professor Francis Davenport from Colorado State University, and I hope you guys join us on December 5th, 2025 at 9 a.m. Eastern US time. And Paola, thank you very much for your time and great presentations. We really enjoy and learn a lot. We appreciate you guys' effort, you, Ali, and the new co-chair stepping in. We really appreciate also Peter and all. GEWEX really, I completely agree that GEWEX is really serving our community, and we're really truly blessed to have and fortunate to have the contribution and the help in our community in climate and water science. So thank you guys, and let's wrap up, and then we see you on December 5th, 2025. By the way, I co-chair this activity with Dr. Josh Rondi. He's here. So we are a team. So we have Dr. Bosco from University of Sydney. Because of the time gap, he is not able to join, but we have him and his contribution in this initiative as well. All right. Josh, do you want to say something, or you're good?
No, I think it's good. Appreciate that. I think we got some good ideas on things to collaborate with and work on.
Yeah, wonderful.
Good.
Yeah, thank you, Paola. Thank you very much for your time. We appreciate that.
Bye.
Thank
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, guys.
And
Have
if you
a great
need the
weekend.
contact of any of the activity leaders that I mentioned because you think it will be important, I will let you know because I didn't mention. But for instance, in the regional projects, for instance, Andex, one of the topics that we are interested is floods, right? And we have a community working on floods. Actually, I have asked a few colleagues to join the flood network, the project, but yeah, it will be good. You will know more about the different activities, so maybe you will know who to contact in a particular moment.
Yeah, sure. So Bernard, if you can send us your email or contact information for Paola to get involved with you. Paola, is that okay? Because I mean, we really love to work on African kind of countries and in that region about the climate and water science issues there, but we couldn't find much, connection with them. So if you could share your info or email us or email Paola so that she can circulate in the GEWEX, that would be great things to get connected with African scientists.
Yeah, that's great. Actually, look forward. I just send my email, and I also take Professor Paola's email.
Yeah.
So that you can initiate these communications.
You can write me, and we can settle a meeting if you consider it.
Yes. Yeah, wonderful.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Guys.
Bye.
Thank you. Have a great weekend. Thank you. Thank you, Josh.
Bye.
Bye. Yeah.